welcome everybody for joining us for another Dagster deep dive. Today we're going to be talking about multi-tenancy for modern data platforms. And yeah, so let's get into it. So first we're going to talk about what multi-tenancy actually means and why it matters to you. And then we're going to get into Dagster's architecture and how code locations enable these patterns. From there, we'll look at some real world case studies, both from a Dagster perspective and from Brooklyn Data's consulting work. We'll do a live demo, and then we're going to open it up for Q&A. And quick intro, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Alex Noonan. I'm a developer advocate at Dagster Labs. Before that, I've worked as a data engineer, data analyst, data scientist. I've done a ton of data work in primarily small to medium-sized businesses. And David, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. So before my time at Brooklyn Data, I was a software and engineering manager at VMware, where I oversaw a team that was responsible from everything from writing core software components to collect telemetry data to then overseeing the construction of basically a customer 360 data warehouse within our proprietary data platform, and then leveraging that data and combine it with lots of other interesting things from around the VMware ecosystem to present information back to execs, product teams, sales teams, and also the marketing org. Before taking on that role, I worked as a data scientist at VMware and Pivotal Labs before then. And then like way back in the day, I had a nice little run at academia, which was a good time.
So should I call you doctor or not? What's the
no. Well, let's skip the honorific because it's like one of those situations where like you're on the plane and it's like, are you a doctor? It's like, well, unless you want to talk about like esoteric American political philosophy, like we could probably skip that.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, David.
Thanks.
And then so multi-tenancy. So what do we actually mean when we say this? And of course, within the context of a data platform. And before I want to talk about multi-tenancy specifically, it helps to ground ourselves in what a data platform is actually trying to do. And there's kind of a fundamental tension between every data organization between these kind of two groups. On one side, you have the data practitioners, and these are your data engineers, analytics engineers, your data scientists, those that consume and produce data. And what they want is autonomy primarily. And they want to focus on business logic in their tool of choice, self-serve their pipelines in a productive development cycle, and work as closely to their business stakeholders as possible. And they don't want to be dealing with a lot of bureaucratic nonsense and managing that stuff. And on the other side, you have the data platform team. And what they want is leverage. They want to ensure that practitioners are self-sufficient and productive, focus on their own energy on high impact platform-wide improvements, and partner with cross-cutting teams like finance and compliance. And the whole game of data platform engineering is finding the right balance between these two forces. So you want to give practitioners, you don't want to give practitioners too much freedom because then you end up with sprawl and difficulty managing all that. And if you lock things down too tight, you create a bottleneck and people create a shadow IT around it. So multi-tenancy is fundamentally a design choice about where you draw that boundary. And then the problem at scale. So I'm sure those of us here that have worked or taken any courses around data science or intro to machine learning, you've likely dealt with the Titanic data set. So since most of us are familiar with the Titanic, I decided to use this as an example. So the ship was designed with several watertight compartments, but when it hit the iceberg, the damage crossed too many of them and the water overflowed from one hold into the next, and then it sunk. And that's exactly what happens with data platforms at scale. You get duplicated pipelines and tools because teams don't know what already exists. You get inconsistent data contracts because nobody agreed on what active user means. And you get unclear ownership where three teams all think someone else owns the customer table. And you get ungoverned sprawl, pipelines and dashboards multiplying without anyone tracking the full picture. So you get a lot of mess, basically. And there's also like several different ways that we've seen organizations structure their data teams. And like I want to say that there's no like one size fit all. I've seen small organizations run one perfectly fine. Big ones run like different one perfectly fine as well. But in the centralized data structure, one data team serves the entire organization. So marketing, product, and finance all submit their requests to this single team. And the upside is you get consistency, you get shared standards, you define tooling, one definition for each metric. The downside is that team is naturally going to be a bottleneck. And sometimes these teams will use their backlogs in a defensive mechanism where they'll be like, oh, I don't want to do that work. So I'm going to say I have all this other stuff to do. And sometimes it works really great when everybody's on the same page. But if it can be that bottleneck is like the real kind of killing blow to this style of organization. The second is having like an embedded model, sometimes called like decentralized or federated. And here the data practitioners sit directly inside each business unit. So marketing has their data person, finance has theirs, so on and so forth. And the upside is you get incredible speed and domain depth. So like the person in marketing really understands the domain and the data they have to work with. And I think like in the age of like LLM assisted coding, like these teams are incredibly high leverage, and we've seen a lot of success with those. But the downside, of course, is drift and lacking coordination, and you're likely going to have like duplicate work and not clean, and you won't have clean governance boundaries between the two. The third is the hybrid model or the hub and spoke model. And that's where you have a central platform team that owns the infrastructure, the standards, and the shared data models. And then the domain teams are enabled by that central team where they can focus on um, delivering high value projects and focusing on their area of expertise. And then we're going to talk about Dagster's architecture. Oh, of course. It's 2026. We got to talk about AI. So AI and LLM workloads add a whole new dimension to the multi-tenancy problem. So, because you got like different teams or tenants that need different models. One team might be running a fine-tuned open source model for document extracting. Another might be using the Open AI API for summarization, and a third might have another open source model that is trained on proprietary data for a different use case. And these models come with incompatible dependency stacks. I'm sure most of you that have done any machine learning engineering know that like managing the dependencies are like pretty heavyweight, and they are often in conflict with doing like standard data work. So having that separation is true whether you're doing with AI or it's kind of funny to say classical machine learning, or if you're doing like classical machine learning. But you have to deal with the cost, latency, and quality variance. So a managed API may cost you more per call, but it gives you better quality. A local open source model is often cheaper but slower. And different tenants may have different tolerances for these trade-offs as well. And if you're in a regulated industry, you need to have auditability and rollback. If a model produces a bad result, you need to know which version that came from. And all this makes the case for treating AI model dependencies as a first-class concern in your multi-tenant architecture and not something you bolt on after the fact. And so multi-tenancy sounds great in theory, but it's not always the right call. And here's a quick like heuristic you can think about if you're trying to decide if your team even needs this. It's a good fit when teams need to deploy independently or when you have regulated boundaries that require hard isolation, or when your workloads have generally different runtime or security constraints. Like I was talking about, if you're doing like machine learning or AI workloads, you're going to have a whole different set of dependencies. And it may make sense to separate those environments out from your classic ETL and data engineering workspace. And you want to avoid it if your team is small and tightly coupled. So if you have 5 people sitting in the same room or within the same org, adding code location boundaries just for ceremony probably isn't worth your time. And same if your workload is homogeneous. So if everyone is doing the same type of work with the same tools, and if your governance problems can be solved by naming conventions or code review or data warehouse isolation, that may make more sense before adding like another layer of complexity to your project. And you can always add isolation later, but it's much difficult to untangle it once it's already in place. And next, we're going to talk about how Dagster's unique architecture actually enables multi-tenancy. So consider the meatball. I like to joke that Dagster follows a meatball sub-architecture where you have the different code locations isolated as individual meatballs. And then your control plane is like the sauce, and your data platform is the sub. And your metadata is probably the cheese. But what I'm getting at here is like you want to have the right things sharing uh, the right compute, the web server, the UI, and the daemon managing all the schedules and sensors, while you have isolation for the things that need the isolation, whether it's different resources or workspace or teams. And I made this when I was hungry, if you can tell. But moving on from code locations to definitions. So definitions are the operating unit within inside Dagster. And each code location has one definition objects, and it bundles together everything that the location needs. So your assets, your asset checks, your jobs, your schedules, all of those roll up into your definitions. And because resources are scoped to a specific definitions object, and each definitions object lives within its own code location, you can configure completely different resources per tenant. And a pretty common architecture we've seen across some teams is they'll create kind of global resources within their Dagster project. And then during the definition code, they'll assign like specific config for that specific environment. So teams can take advantage of the leverage created by the platform team in the form of resources for common interacting with like data warehouses or other systems, as well as importing like business specific logic. That's a pretty clean way to do it. And some common isolation patterns we've seen, and I've like kind of alluded to these more or less throughout this presentation. But one way to think about it is having a team-based governance model, so marketing, finance, product, etc. And this maximizes autonomy, but the blast radius is larger because one team's failure can still affect downstream consumers. I think if you're in a pro service or a compliance heavy model, having a like client focused separation makes a lot of sense, where you have individual units having their own separation. And that's a great way to take advantage of those shared pipelines and logic or shared resources, like I mentioned. And per domain is like bounded context model, borrowed from domain-driven design. And you organize around business domains rather than team structure. And this is how we run our internal Dagster implementation. And we run a pretty small team. Our data team is like 2 people. So that works for us, where people can engage with the platform without having to have like deep knowledge about like, oh, this is for marketing, this is for sales, that type of thing. And then per environment, using like a strict lifecycle model, we have a few teams that use this for like blue-green deployments. And I think it's more important if you have like stricter uptime requirements and you really want to make sure things are clear before merging into main. And Dagster Plus, of course, has branch deployments, which allow you to do this in a kind of light fashion. And then moving on to some case studies. We'll start on the Dagster side of things. So I'll drop the link to these in the chat here. Sorry, trying to balance a few screens over here. So the first one is StashAway. And they are a digital wealth management platform in Southeast Asia. And they use Dagster to orchestrate investment and regulatory data pipelines across multiple markets, each with their own specific compliance requirements. And they use different code locations for whatever region they're working in. So they still can take advantage of that unified global view of how their customers and clients are working across the world while being able to manage it within one view, which is really efficient because they're another pretty lean team. And then moving on to Magenta, shout out to George Heiler and Alexander. They're also friends of the show. And they recently did a case study with us where they showed how they have built a really powerful, I believe the analogy they used was unsinkable ship data platform. And yeah, pull that thread back. But because they have a problem of, all right, how do you maintain that like governance separation while making it easy for new contractors or people to join and contribute to the platform. And so they use like different code locations for different teams, but they also invested a lot in enablement for people to contribute to the platform. So if somebody wants to get onboarded into their data platform, they can do that within a few hours, as opposed to previously all the provisioning and security requirements took weeks, and that can really burn a lot of time. And then IDA, they are a fresh produce ordering platform in France, and they use AI-powered demand forecasting to reduce food waste. They run multiple DBT projects within a single Dagster instance, one per each retailing client. And so they're able to borrow a lot of logic depending on whether that client is using the same tool stack or data stack and metrics. So it allows them to share and take advantage of their efforts and really scale as an organization. So all these are great examples, and I encourage you to check out those case studies if you haven't yet. And then David, do you want to go?
Yeah, I would love to. Thank you. So unfortunately, I can't provide quite the level of client detail that Alex is able to. Just, client work. Often we have to abide by NDAs and protect the anonymity of our clients. But talking about this first use case, so we had a very traditional but quite large financial services company. And what was interesting here is that they had a extremely advanced and mature data engineering org that was supporting a rather large data science team, who then was responsible for supporting the investment decision makers. And so there were two complications here. One was the dev cycle for adding a new data source had to be extremely short. So the developer experience was really important for this team. And the second part was, this was actually a migration. Originally, they were on Airflow, but it was super messy. They had like, the exact number was in the 170s for the number of unique data sources that they had. And they actually had, it was a one-to-one relationship between their Git repos and their data sources. But they also had multi-generation of tech debt where they were using in-house developed packages, and they were doing all sorts of alternative data ingestion. So it wasn't just, pull from like this S3 bucket or that Snowflake share. It was run this web scrape, which you're constantly having to update, run this SFTP transfer, in addition to all the other places that you would expect to have to bring in data that you're purchasing or gathering on your own. And what this meant was just like, it was unwieldy. And so one of the ways that they got around this is cold locations meant that they could have different ingestion patterns that could be followed without sort of impacting the project at whole. And they were also able to then sort of have these packages that they developed in-house and were doing a lot of their lifting on their ingestion framework, not be these universal dependencies, which, as Alex made mention before, like all of us who have worked in data science know, like getting the latest version of pandas or polars to work with something out of, SciPy or sklearn is just like, it's going to break. You don't know when it's going to break, but it's going to break, and it's going to be really miserable. And so this was one of the ways that they were able to get around this. They implemented Dagster. And then we helped do their pipeline migration, and they're now really happy. They're it's all the reasons that people like Dagster. It's better observability, better monitoring, better dev experience. And the code locations part was really vital for solving some of this dependency trouble that they had been experiencing. Another place where we've seen Dagster be really effective is it's actually very similar to the IDA case study that you were just talking about, right? Multiple sort of like large conglomerate, multiple brands, or for you it was locations, but here it's brands, and they sort of all had some of their own logic, but what they wanted to do is bring together this global reporting capability, but on a centralized platform. And so this was really a design pattern that allowed them to do that and maintain individual logic, but sort of a platform view of all of that. And then this third one is one that I'm really excited about, which is large financial services company, and they're trying to extract, well, they have many data needs, but the way that this project really unfolded was, in addition to their traditional analytics and reporting, they had all this unstructured data that they needed to pull out and capture. And so this was replacing manual workflows where you literally had financial analysts manually entering data out of PDFs for like deal size and credit agreements, and then massive Excel macros going across sheets and files, and it was just like a governance nightmare, basically. I don't know how else to say it. And what we recommended was, and helped develop, was these different LLMs being used for different parts of it, because a lot of the documents were different. So using Olama for some things, using Cortex for others, and wanting to give a platform that was going to allow the teams to leverage the right tool for the right job, right? Which is always, I feel like, what the job of a platform team is to enable others. And yeah, it was really cool, and I wish I could say more about it.
David, when you're talking to these clients about like having like a platform team mindset, is it usually a hard sell, or is it like pretty intuitive for people to get on board with it?
I actually kind of reject the dichotomy that just because it's a hard sell, I think it is actually very intuitive for a lot of people. That doesn't make it an easy sell then for the rest of the company or whoever is controlling the purse strings. I think that when you frame it with data practitioners, they get it. And they're like, I see the value in this. I think where we get the pushback is like, but how do you enable its, I don't know that I have the team to help support this. And, I have somebody who is very much like in the weeds with the data. Like, I don't know that I can like pull them out and make them part of the platform team, but that's also kind of what Brooklyn Data does. Like, we serve as an extension of companies to help them do this. So that was kind of a long and tangential answer, but I think people see the value of the platform. They certainly see it as they scale. I think where people always struggle is, if I'm at a smaller size now, do I really need this? Is this my like P0 investment that I need to make right now? I think is where we get a lot of the questions. And for us, we look at some sort of level of expected complexity for what that organization is expecting to grow in terms of the size of like the outcomes it's trying to drive, but also like the size and diversity of the data sources that they're expecting to ingest. Again, going back to like what you mentioned before, like where it's a good fit, where it's not a good fit. And, there's a company right now where we're actually talking to them. We stood up their data platform on Snowflake and replacing a bunch of Excel-driven workflows, yet another financial services company where this is, the case. And the initial project was like, oh, we have like 3 data sources and like, that's all we need. And, 18 months later, we're at like 12 different data sources, and we're talking to them about, they want to move into more of a maintenance mode. And we're saying to them like, hey, you're worried about uptime, you're worried about availability, you're worried about reducing downtime when it happens, because it will happen, especially when you're dependent on third-party data providers who are going to change schemas on you, and it's going to break things. And we're like, hey, we'd really like you to take a look at this product because we think it's going to help you guys achieve more of the outcomes that you're trying to hit.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that like some teams like they probably haven't budgeted for the amount of like data pipelines and like assets that they're creating now with like AI assisted development, where like those I imagine those like governance and like scaling problems are hitting people like a lot earlier than they expected. So it's the pain is probably more acute more recently.
I think the pain is definitely acute, and I think that what we're seeing at least is a lot of CFO, CDO, CISO, CIO types, CTO types, basically asking like why is it taking so long to create a centralized repository when you do have this ability to leverage things here? And the answer is like, because you still need someone to check it and verify, and things don't always match up, and it still takes digging through to make sense of everything.
Yeah, in that way, I feel like data work is relatively unchanged from the latest technological developments because I feel like those things people can say like over and over again and have said it forever.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's just the scale changes, right? And
Yeah.
I always take it as a compliment when, to me, the best outcome when you present, an insight is always that somebody has another question.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like a little bit like that's what's happening now, which is like you're making more insights available. So now people have more questions, they want more, and you're just sort of like feeding the flywheel of information.
Yeah, it's never been a better time to be a data engineer.
I genuinely believe that's true, and it's also it's like just like an exciting time. It's an exciting time to have tools that are racing ahead and you're trying to figure out ways to use them, and also tools that are racing to keep up. And I think overall it's a good thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, that leads us well up into our demo. So here's a Claude generated architecture diagram of what we're going to talk about. At the top, we have our Dagster control plane, so the web server, and then the schedules and sensors. And then the business that we're modeling here is a um, like think a conglomerate with like multiple business lines. So we have like a financial services, Summit Financial, and then we have Harbor Outfitters, and then we have like the headquarters. And then kind of below that, we have the shared platform layer. I'm using some locally run Llama models. My laptop is kind of screaming at me. And then for each of these business lines, they have their own dedicated DuckDB database. So let me pull up. This is the Dagster UI. And as you can see here in our deployment tab, we have 3 code locations over here. We go over to our, there we go, to our asset lineage view. And we can filter by code location to see, all right, there's like the beacon view, there's Harbor Outfitters, and we have some assets in here. And we have assets that depend across each code location too, which is a important thing to mention. And if you want to follow along, the code is right here. So hopping into my IDE to walk through some of the code real quick. And then to configure different code locations, you simply need to add a different you need to add a different like Python module within your workspace YAML file, which lives at the root of your Dagster project. And then, like I mentioned, we have some shared resources here for resources, IO managers. And then this is like the base LLM resource that checks to see which model we're using, any system prompt, or any runtime dependencies. And then when you go to the definitions level for like Beacon HQ, for example, when we're defining our LLM resource, we specify like use this model and use these dependencies. And this one is for writing like a summary brief. And then if you want to do cross code location like automations, I have a sensor here that checks to see if the job for both Harbor Outfitters and Summit Financials ran successfully, and then it'll materialize the job for the Beacon like executive briefing job. So to show you how it works within then here, I will kick off some jobs. So we will run the catalog publish job. And these run pretty fast because I'm just using like 3 rows for each. But we get that nice Gantt chart here. And it's enriching. Yeah, I wish my microphone was picking up how loud my laptop is right now. But still going. Yeah, so basically, we have all these assets that are connected together. We have clean separation between the different medallion layers within the code locations, and we have automations that can kick off between different code locations when like one runs successfully, that'll kick off another. So that reduces the amount of overhead that I have to do when I'm thinking about running these pipelines and managing them. And additionally, on the code side, from a data platform perspective, I have separate dependencies between each code location. And I have all the metadata and logs running into one place, which is the Dagster instance. And additionally, we can set specific resources depending on the use case. And so that's it for the demo. And then for the key takeaways, first, this one's for platform teams. It's all about enablement. Multi-tenancy isn't about locking teams down. It's about drawing boundaries that enable speed. So you don't want to slow people down. You want to code locations give practitioners autonomy while platform teams keep visibility and standards throughout the org. So it's about rising the tide to lift all boats, so to speak. And second, for anyone getting started, don't complicate it. If you can work fine within one code location or like one governance model, like start there. And then when you feel that actual pain, or you can foresee in the next like 3 to 6 months that you're going to have that pain, start thinking about like, okay, where do we draw the boundaries here? And how do we make sure that our practitioners and stakeholders can still be enabled from this? And third, for adoption, you want to focus on the highest point of leverage first. So you can prove that pattern in one code location, swap out a tool, create like a resource. And then if it's beneficial to other groups, you can move that resource or IO manager or what have you into a shared model that other code locations can take advantage of. And then if you want to learn more, I would encourage you to check out our AI data analyst chatbot Compass. If you're on the Dagster Plus Pro plan, you can use Compass for your Dagster Plus data, which is a really effective data ops tool. And David, I believe you have a blog coming out soon on
I
Compass.
do.
Is that correct?
So we've been lucky enough at Brooklyn Data we got a very early look at Compass, and we've actually been using it actively internally since for about 3 months now. We've seen some really great outcomes that it's helping us drive. I'm using it multiple times every day, and sort of the blog post just sort of talks about what it is that we're doing with it, like why we're enjoying it, and how it's made life better for us, quite frankly.
Yeah, we use it a lot internally, and it's crazy the amount of like you were talking about earlier, how with like the demand for data has like increased significantly, and the supply that we've been able to bring on has like increased the equilibrium significantly. And now people are asking like more intelligent questions. They're able to like do more effective work within themselves with the data they have. So it's really like a win-win situation as far as like a data activation perspective.
Totally.
And additionally, if you're writing Dagster, I would encourage you to use our new Dagster skills, which they can plug into Cursor, Claude Code, Codex, and it really speeds up the development time. So you can focus less on Dagster syntax, which I know the models aren't super great in, and you can focus more on like, all right, how do I deliver the business objectives that I actually want this data to serve? And then David, you want to talk about what folks can learn from Brooklyn Data?
Yeah. So this links out to our get in touch page. If you're a firm that's need help with developing a data strategy, with AI readiness, with you have things on your roadmap and you're not sure what the right solution design should look like, or you have a design in mind but you want to validate, or your team is full up and you know that you have objectives that you need to hit and you need some extra helping hands, get in touch. We're friendly, and we've helped a lot of people. We like playing in the data space, and curious to hear about what problems everyone out there might be facing or what's top of mind for them.
Awesome. And then yeah, so we're going to open it up to the Q&A. If anybody has any questions, please drop them in the chat. But I guess, David, are you a big LLM assisted code writer when it comes to your data work?
So we are. I'm not in the code too much myself these days. I'd say where I'm using code assistants a lot these days to help me with like presentation preparation, or thinking about how to structure different kinds of approaches to solving different problems, just to make sure that I'm covering my bases. But we're using coding tools a lot to help with various stages. So particularly around like model design or like schema design, as well as executional code. But we're really leaning into like, how do we plan and scope and think about where we can gain efficiencies and what our model looks like. That I think is where like the biggest differentiation for us is and will continue to be, not just on the, hey, help me write like an unsupervised clustering customer segmentation work to then feed into Cortex.
Yeah, it's interesting the things that were super important before, and the things that I focus on now, which is a lot more around like data modeling and reliability. And I find myself thinking like less and less about syntax and more about like, how do I make this all work? And how do I keep like uptime, and thinking about like quality of life improvements and those types of things.
Yeah, very much so. And I think one of the other things that's like exciting is like a member of my team just submitted a talk to DBT Summit in September. And that talk is all about how at this client, they're leveraging Claude Code. That's not a plug for Claude specifically, just like happens to be what they're using, to basically help generate like self-healing DBT pipelines. And like when it sees an error, like what does it try? Like what does the model that they're trying to write, like what is it seeking to accomplish, and where's the error, and how could basically like how can you get the LLM to be that first triage point and then come back to you with suggestions of what it's seeing, so like you're not trying to just like digest what the error is like from the get-go, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's funny that you bring that up, because we have something cooking in the works on that very subject, as you would imagine. But yeah. I think like that's definitely how things are trending, where it's like the first line of a lot of problems will be handled by like some sort of bot. And I think what's nice about like Dagster is if you're on Dagster Plus, you got branch deployments. So you could have an agent like take a run in prod, diagnose the issue, open up a pull request, and like run to see if it works before a human can intervene. And then they can cleanly go to the PR, see like the run status of everything, make sure it passed CI/CD, and so much less time spent on doing the firefighting, more just like kind of cruising through doing data work.
Let me ask you a question. So it's awesome that it's in branch deployments. You could also maybe think about doing that in a code location as well. If like some of your data required more, like if some of your data was like more sensitive or less sensitive than others, like you may not be willing to sort of give that governability over to a bot, but like for say, I actually can't think of something that would be less sensitive that like you'd want to like that like you'd be more like you wouldn't want to do that for like customer spend data, but like maybe you're willing to do that for like internal like I don't know, like DORA metrics, right? Like you're like more
Yeah.
willing, like if you had that as like part of your project, like you'd be more willing to hand the keys over. But it'd be kind of cool because like you could then have that run in part of your project, but not expose everything to it. Like that'd be a great use of code locations.
Awesome. So like I think we seeded a few questions here.
Yeah.
All right. So this one's from Sebastian. And can you talk a little bit about partitions and their limits when it comes to multi-tenancy? So thinking like same pipeline, multiple environments, multiple customers. And I would say like partitions are subordinate to assets as far as like the Dagster abstractions go. And I would want to have so assets are like wrapped up in a definition with inside one code location. So with that in mind, I think for partitions, you want to keep them within one code location because like managing that sprawl across them can be kind of difficult to bear. And it's like with Dagster, it's super flexible, so you could theoretically do it, but there's easier ways to accomplish that. And then we have a question here from Paul. And can Dagster permissions be structured to have external clients have access to their resources and trigger manual jobs? And I guess, Paul, I have a follow-up question for you. Do you mean like having people that are like external to your org interact with your Dagster environment? Paul, if you want to drop that in the chat, I'll answer it. Yeah, we have a question from Sonia here asking how big the Brooklyn data team is.
Yeah, so the Brooklyn data itself is about, what are we up to? We're like 75 people these days. And then Valir Brooklyn data is like 185.
Amazing.
Yeah.
We have a question here from James. If Dagster supports MCP and GEDTech development. And we have our skills, which I mentioned here. And we've actually been working on improving our MCP to have more coverage. And the MCP is just an extension of the Dagster DG CLI. So anything you can do with that CLI, whether it's interrogating runs, troubleshooting why things broke, understanding your asset graph and how things are related, all those things which are useful for an LLM to develop more effectively can interface through the Dagster CLI and by extension, the MCP. Yeah, and to answer, going back to Paul's question about like, can Dagster permissions be structured to have external clients have access to like trigger jobs? And theoretically, you could use the Dagster GraphQL API to like build an application like on top of Dagster. We would recommend that you go that route so you can manage permissions like that way. But like out of the box, especially if you're on open source, it's kind of tricky to set up the governance you would want to do that sort of thing. And then we have a question from Nikhil. What is important considerations when isolating environments for experimentation versus production? And David, I know you have a data science background, so do you want to take this one?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just looking for the question. So experiments versus production.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like, again, like one of those like clear boundaries. I think there's multiple ways to do it, and it depends on how you want to set up your ML ops. So, right, there's ways that you could do it with like table structure and schema structure with where you're writing it from, and just have those be the dependencies. And obviously, having the dependencies marked in the software defined assets is like another great way to do it. So I would say it's a combination of tags in Dagster as well as your schema, and thinking pretty carefully about what environment you're writing to. Like, so for example, like in Snowflake, if you want to set up a separate mart or schema for where your model runs live versus your champion model, are definitely how I tend to think about it. And then also setting up like your feature store separately as well. And then basically thinking about like each of these components as something that's getting built out in Dagster, and you're just always making sure you're calling the right one. So like really the only difference is like in production, it's the tag is changing on like which model you're promoting. And you can think of that like dynamically, right? Like you could actually set the label to change based on like what the values are, or think about it as like a sensor as well. So like maybe you just want to promote whatever the latest model is immediately into like some sort of champion challenger workflow, and then evaluate from there.
Awesome. And then we got a question here from Aaron about for the LLM resources used in the demo, are they accessed via REST APIs, or are they embedded in the image, or are they on like a separate deployment in K8s? So for this, I have the images in a like locally running Docker container. But if you were to productionize this, yeah, you would probably deploy it with like K8s or Docker on the cloud. And then the code, it's accessed locally through like a REST protocol. But again, like this is just like a demo purposes. If you were to actually deploy it, there would be a few more steps, at least 2 more steps. And then we have a question here from JD. A few code location boundaries we've been considering are around BI versus customer operational assets, and PII versus non-PII anonymized. Are there any useful considerations to keep in mind with this strategy? David, I'll shoot this one over to you.
Thank you. So I think a lot of it goes back to like, when you're, so JD, I guess a follow-up question I have here is, when you're saying customer operation, is any of this customer facing, I guess, is my first question. And if so, so I think the code locations and making sure your row-based access control is pretty tight are 2, things I would definitely consider right off the bat. And I think the other thing I would consider is like, to what degree, like, do you have to keep the PII versus could you, use some sort of like hashing scheme or anonymization technique further upstream, so that you're really limiting what's even flowing through to begin with. But generally, I would say it aligns to what Alex was talking about before, when you're thinking about like what are natural boundaries. So like PII versus non-PII would be like a natural boundary when thinking about who has access to what and how you would separate things within Dagster. I hope that answered your question, and if it didn't, please let us know.
Awesome. And then we had a few questions if Dagster can support multiple SSO providers for Dagster Plus, and the answer is yes. And I just dropped that in the chat. And Maximilian asked if there is a way to keep teams separated in the UI so that multiple teams and code locations can exist in one Dagster Plus like hybrid account, but only one team can see the different code locations, so you can have that isolation. And yes, the role-based access control is a feature in Dagster Plus, and honestly, it's one of the biggest reasons. It's one of the biggest reasons we see people migrate from like an open source project to Dagster Plus is they need that added like governance and control layer as the project gets too big to manage. And I dropped the link to the docs for that in the chat there. And then we have a question here from Daniel. Currently setting up a Dagster Plus in Azure K8. You're going to have multi-tenancy within each team and code locations for self-service. Any tips or tricks or challenges you've run into as far as setting up multi-tenancy Dagster K8s? I have always, working at Dagster, we have Dagster Plus, so that's what I use. But I think what you're going to want to think about is how do I get to V1 without like overcomplicating it? Because it sounds like you have a lot of moving parts between the deployment, managing the infrastructure, and making sure everybody can get what they need. David, do you have any tips?
I'm thinking through it, and we've all of our deployments so far have actually have all been on ECS or on Dagster Plus. So this isn't actually something that we've run into so far. And at VMware, we were running Dagster on our own Kate's platform, but it wasn't multi-tenancy. It was just our single team using it, so it wasn't something we ran into yet. Unhelpful answer.
Yeah, Daniel, if you want to chat with me in the community Slack, that would I can help you work through those. But yeah, we're gonna have to call it there. Thank you to everybody for such great questions. And if we didn't get a chance to answer your questions, please chat with me in the Dagster community Slack, and we can get those resolved. Yeah, David, anything you want to say?
This was great. Thank you so much for having me and giving me the chance to talk about code locations, which is near and dear to my heart. And yeah, hope to be back again soon.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, everybody.